What happens if you see somebody who has huge potential, but they're just not doing their job or living up to that potential? So guys, thank you for all the questions. I'm getting questions almost daily now, and that's exactly what I'd hoped for. So, you can DM me, you can message me, you can leave it in any of the chats. I love to get the questions. It stops me having to think about topics to talk about. So generally what I do, I talk about what's happening in my life at that particular time. But when somebody gives me a question, it allows me the freedom to kind of extrapolate the information that I have and turn it towards the particular question. And this question that I got today was seeing potential, but you're getting the wrong end of the deal. How do you get the most from somebody who has huge potential but is not living up to it? So as a business owner, particularly if you've been in business a long time, you are going to come across this an awful lot. And because that's why you hire them, right? You see some kind of spark, you see some kind of commonality, you see some kind of empathy, or you see something in them that you believe they will be part of a team, or at least they will fit into the team. And sometimes, I don't have a problem hiring people where they are the polar opposite of me, and I can tell that they're going to push me, or I can tell that they're going to push the parameters, because sometimes that's what your team needs, and sometimes that's what you need in order to make things happen. But there will be a lot of times where you see potential in people, and I find this a lot more in young people than older people. So you find somebody who, for example, is 19, 20, 21, let's say in their early 20s, and you have a conversation with them, you tell them about a job, and they say all the right things, and you can see that there's an energy there, and you can see that there's a willingness there to be molded, because in order to get the most from people, they have to be kind of malleable. In other words, you can mold them to where you want them to go. But when the rubber hits the road and work starts, what you can find, like I say, is just my personal observation, that young people are almost trained to be lazy. They're trained to look for their work breaks. They are trained to not go beyond the hours. So, for example, I was, last week, I wanted to talk to one of the members of staff. I pinged them on Skype and said, give me a call. And the person said that they were on their 10, which meant they were on their 10-minute breaks. So they expected me to wait 10 minutes. Now, is it fair or not? I don't care. It's my business. I make the rules. It's not a democracy. It's an autocracy. I'm trying to make things happen. Life's hard enough without people trying to second guess me, get in the way, or try and live their lives inside that organization. So are they wrong? Probably not. But common sense dictates that if your boss wants to talk to you and it's a 10-minute break where you're watching YouTube, stop the break, go talk to your boss, restart your break, right? It's not about not having breaks. It's about having the social IQ to know what's right and what's wrong. So that's an example of an incident. Or when somebody is in the middle of something, they're doing the job quite well, and they finish at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock or whenever they finish, that time comes and it's down tools and off they go. So what does that telegraph to you? That there's no work ethic. But is that really the case? I'm not sure that it is. I think it's that they've been trained that way. They've been brought up in a society where it's not okay to do something for nothing. I was brought up in an age and a society where you worked until the job was done. You tried to impress your boss. You tried to do something as well as you could, and you were thirsty and hungry for knowledge, right? So I think it's a bit of both. It's a bit of, is it a social construct where people are headed towards a certain way? And I'm not talking about exploiting people so that they work longer and harder than they should, but there has to be some degree of compromise where business owners can expect things from their team and the team can expect things from the owners. It's vice versa. Maybe they have an appointment and they need to go. That's fine. You don't need to dock their pay for it. Maybe they need to come in late or early or whatever. There has to be a degree of compromise in order to make that little universe work. Now, so getting back to my point of, how do you make people who have huge potential live up to that potential? You first have to identify if the problem that you're having with that person is a social problem. In other words, it's what they has happened to them in the past. They had 2 or 3 or 4 different jobs. They worked for McDonald's, this very structured organization, or they have come from an environment where there's a certain expectation of how things are done. So you have to decide, can you educate that person? Can you make them see the light? Can you get them pointing in the direction that you want them to be pointed in? Or is it just not there? Right? So I would say for the first 20 or 30 years in business, I believed I could, put in what God left out. So if somebody didn't have a skill, if somebody didn't have a particular behavior, if somebody didn't have whatever they were missing, I used to believe that I could teach them, and I would spend an inordinate amount of time trying to teach them the skills that they didn't have. Now I'm less tolerant. In other words, I don't believe that you can put in what God left out. If you've misread this person and they are lazy and unmotivated, I think what I do now is just get rid of the person, because it's not worth the effort. You got to put it in the too hard basket. It's hard enough to run and own a business with everything that comes with it and still have to deal with people who are second guessing you or not making the effort. So if somebody has the potential, even a little bit of potential, and I do this often, sometimes I'll see somebody who I've earmarked as they're going to be a manager. I like to put them on Audible, for example, and then ask the person, what is it that you're trying to achieve? And I don't have a problem if somebody says to me, listen, I want to work for you for 2 or 3 years, learn as much as I can and go and start my own business. I admire that. That's good enough for me. I just want honesty with the people that I'm dealing with. And not only that, I'll help them. I love, the whole reason I do this is because I love the entrepreneurial spirit and I'm trying to help people as much as I can. That's my thing. I like to see people succeed. So I'll usually have a list of different books that I have found useful, and I'll buy them a subscription and start giving them books to listen to, start teaching them. So to summarize that, how do you get the most potential from somebody who has potential is to find out what they want and help them achieve that. Now, hopefully that will be in sync and congruent with your business, and that's great. And even if it's not, but they've got ambition, I promise you it's still worth helping the person who is committed to you. So I'll give you an example of that. I have a copywriter who's been with me for, 10 years or something. He has left 2 or 3 times to do his own thing and come back. And the reason I'll give him a job every single time is because I know that when he works for me, he gives me 100%. There's never a day, rain or shine, sickness or health, that man doesn't do his 100% best. If he has to work for me, if he has to write one email and that's all he's ever going to write, I'm going to get the best version of him always. And I like people like that to be around and in my universe. I like them to be present in what they do. If you ever do anything with me, I am always 100% present. I'm not thinking about family or trouble or the next business or that thing. I'm 100% present with the person that I'm with or the situation that I am in. So if you can get that from a person, I'm not that worried about whether they want to commit to me for the next 5 or 10 or 15 years. But if they're pushing forward my concept and idea, they want to go plant the flag in the hill with me, then I'm all for teaching that person. So find out what they want and try and incorporate that into what you want and go through that journey together and help that person as much as you can. I hope that helps. Don't forget to give us a like and follow. Thanks for listening.